call to order this meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals, and today is August 28th. Ms. Nestor-Jelen, will you please call the roll?
Sure, and just a note, if anyone is present from technical services, I'm not sure if the 4 TVs down here could be configured to show the screen on the Teams meeting, but that would be extremely helpful. I'll go ahead and call the roll. Skip Daly. Pamela Davidson.
Present.
Guy Loftman.
Here.
Dee Owens. Margaret Clements.
Here.
Okay, so we have 3 members in person and a quorum.
Okay, is there a motion to introduce the evidence?
I will move to introduce tonight's evidence.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to introduce the following items into the evidence: the Monroe County Comprehensive Land Use Plan as adopted and amended, the Monroe County Zoning Ordinance as adopted and amended, the Monroe County Subdivision Control Ordinance as adopted and amended, the Board of Zoning Appeals Rules of Procedure as adopted and amended, and the cases advertised and scheduled for a hearing on tonight's agenda.
And is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And seconded.
Okay, call the roll on the introduction of evidence. Pamela Davidson.
Yes.
Guy Loftman.
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Okay, and as I stated earlier, the agenda has been amended because the first item on the agenda has been continued by the petitioner. Given that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I will move to approve tonight's agenda as amended.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. A vote yes is a vote to approve. Guy Loftman.
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes.
Pamela Davidson.
Yes.
Motion is approved 3-0.
Okay, there's no administrative business, no old business, so we are going to move directly to item number 2, which is a variance 24-37 concerning Richardson minimum lot size variance to Chapter 804 concerning 1.647 plus or minus acre parcel in Washington Township, Section 34, at 440 East Sample Road. And Mr. Brown, if you would be so kind as to review the case with us, we'd be most grateful.
I'll also note just really quickly for the record, Dee Owens has joined the meeting, so she's present.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. This is a minimum lot size variance to Chapter 804 with the purpose of placing a new manufactured home on the subject property to take the place of a previously demolished manufactured home. The previous manufactured home was removed from the property via demolition permit R-24-607, and a new manufactured home is being proposed to be added via the residential manufactured home placement permit R-24-623. However, it was found during review of R-24-623 that the property does not meet the 2.5 acre minimum lot size for the agriculture rural reserve zoning district. Hence, this variance is being triggered. If the design standards variance is approved, any future property owner will be able to continue the building permit applications and comply with all other building and zoning codes. If the design standards variance to the minimum lot size is denied, the petitioner will not be able to construct any proposed structure on the property without first obtaining a rezone or conducting a lot line shift. And here is, I'm sorry, is my screen being shared?
Is your screen, it's showing to us, but these 2 screens are off, or 4 screens might be off.
Technical Services, I think, is going to be working to have these screens show for the public, but as of right now, there is not screen share.
But we see the one that you're projecting up here.
So this is a location map as well as a site conditions map. There's not a lot of slope on the lot, especially in the proposed area. On the site conditions map right now is also the old manufactured home that was demolished, and the new one is going in the same place. I do also want to note for when we get to site photos that discussion among staff okayed the petitioner to store the proposed manufactured home on the lot, provided it is not hooked up to utilities or actively being lived in. And here is the current zoning map, as well as the comprehensive map. And on the screen right now are two site photos. One is of the lot in particular. You can see the home at the end there. The other is also a view of the proposed home, but also a view of where the demolished home once stood. I don't know if you can make it out in the image, but there are remnants of utility connections in that second photo. And here is the petitioner's letter to the Board of Zoning Appeals, along with a site map that is being used for the permit. And so in the case of VAR-24-37, staff recommends approval as practical difficulties have been demonstrated. This is a lot that does not meet the minimum lot size of the agricultural rural reserve zone. Construction is not possible without a variance approval, a rezone to a smaller lot size requirement, or a lot line shift within adjacent property.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. That was very helpful. Do members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions for staff?
No.
Are they going to place the new home in essentially the area where the old one was with the utility hookups already there?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if Ms. Owens has a question, because I can't see her. Okay. She says, D. Owens needs to be promoted to a panelist. She's tried to speak a few times, and she has not been able to be heard.
Let me go ahead and see if I can have tech services promote her.
Just for people who are here, we have a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals who is attending this meeting from home, and there's a technical thing where they have to promote her to a panelist so she can participate.
Let me see if we're not able to hear Dee or Roxana if they're trying to speak. Yeah.
Well, Tech Services is working on it.
I trust that D is not muted at her end.
She is not what?
Okay, thank you, just double checking.
And that.
Oh, so Dee says she has no questions right now. So we move on to the petitioner. Mr. Richardson or Mr. Richardson's representative, if you would kindly come to the podium and sign in, then I'll swear you in, and then you'll have 15 minutes. If both of you wish to speak, both please sign in.
Speak.
So if you would kindly raise your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. And whoever intends to speak first, please state your name, and combined you'll have 15 minutes.
That's fine. My name's Amanda Richardson, and Morris is a family member, and I helped him go through the OpenGov process. He's not exactly techie savvy, so I helped him go through that, filing all the paperwork. A little backstory is, yes, we went through and filed the permit to demolish the previous manufactured home. At that time, we provided the septic permit that was needed, showing the driveway was already put in, the site plan. And I believe it was Tammy at Planning was asking if we disposed it properly. So Morris hired Brad Blackwell, Gillen to do the contracting. Hannah provided the dumpster because she was like, we want to make sure you're not going to bury the trash. And I said, we're not going to bury the trash. So we have removed the old manufactured home as we were supposed to do, permitted to do. And then we filed the permit to move the new one on, and then we got flagged as not the right acreage for that. So that's why we're here today.
I see. And would you like to add anything, sir?
No, I'm just, I'm just trying to place that back up there so I can live up there,
Right.
I've owned it for 20 years, just want to get moved back up there.
Time for fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be nice. Do you have anything else to add, or do my colleagues have any questions for the Richardsons?
So it looks from the picture as if the new home is just sitting on the property, maybe on a trailer, waiting to be
It's
installed.
backed up on my property, sitting on the wheel, but it's not hooked up to just, because I called in here and asked, because I had to get it out of the place I bought it from.
Right.
And I asked permission, they said, as long as it's not hooked up, you can park it.
Well, that was
So
nice.
that's what I did.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
And I'm just going to check with Ms. Owens to see if she has a question, if you would indicate in the chat if you have one. Okay, she has no question. So we'll hear from the public, both for and against. And if there's anybody against, you'll have 5 minutes to speak again, to refute or to answer what they might say.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, are there members of the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? If so, please come to the podium or let us know on virtual media on this Teams software by raising your virtual hand if you would like to speak in support of the Richardson variance request on Sample Road. Oh,
I hope we can get them. If we even know they're there. Do we know?
can you tell if anybody is,
No one has their hand raised.
okay. Okay, is there anyone here in this room who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? Please come to the podium or raise your virtual hand. Well, there's none, so there will be no rebuttal, but I would like to turn to my colleagues here on the Board of Zoning Appeals for further discussion and/or a motion.
It seems exactly the kind of thing that we're here to make easy as we can for people. I'm sorry you have to go through it, but we appreciate you doing it. We try to keep these, we try to make sure people abide by laws, but sometimes it's inconvenient. I move that we approve variance 24-37 design standards on the basis that practical difficulties have been demonstrated. The lot does not meet size and construction is not possible without the variance or a rezone, and so this is an appropriate way to deal with it.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve VAR 24-37, which is a minimum lot size variance to Chapter 804. A vote yes is a vote to approve the variance. Pamela Davidson,
Yes.
Margaret Clements,
Yes?
Guy Loftman,
Yes.
and I'll note D. Owens mentioned yes in the chat. I'll take that as a
As a
she
unanimous.
agrees, yes.
It's a unanimous
It's
approval.
unanimous, yes.
Yes, so,
But 3-0 legally, I think.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Well,
thank you.
thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for helping us understand what's going on and helping us solve this issue. So have a good evening. Thank you. We move on now to items number 3 and 4 on the agenda, and their variances 34-39A and B. This is the Cox minimum lot size variance to Chapter 804 and the Cox minimum lot width variance to Chapter 804 concerning 1 1.1 plus or minus acre parcel in Bean Blossom Township, Section 19 at 9087 West Mount Carmel Road. And Mr. Brown, it's good to have you back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is a minimum lot size and a minimum lot width variance with the purpose of constructing an addition to an existing single-family residence on the subject property. The petitioner is proposing an addition to a 3-bedroom home. Said 960 square foot addition will include an additional 4th bedroom, a dining room that will attach to an existing kitchen, and a bathroom. However, the property does not meet the 2.5 minimum lot size nor the 200-foot minimum lot width required for lots in the Agriculture Rural Reserve zoning district. Hence, these variances were triggered. If the design standards variances are approved, any future property owner will be able to continue with the building permit applications and comply with all other building and zoning codes. If the variances to minimum lot size and minimum lot width are denied, the petitioner will not be able to construct any proposed structure on the property without obtaining a rezone or conducting a lot line shift. And here is the location map and the site conditions map on the property, fairly flat. And here is the current zoning map as well as the comprehensive plan map. And here is the petitioner letter. A bit simple, but it fulfills all the requirements.
Yes.
And here is a view of the subject property. The addition is going to be on the right side of the building there, according to the site plan they submitted for the residential building permit. And here is the site plan that was submitted.
That looks nice.
And so staff recommends approval of VAR 24-39A and VAR 2439B as practical difficulties have been demonstrated. This is a lot that does not meet minimum lot size or minimum lot width of the Agriculture Rural Reserve Zone. Construction is not possible without variance approval, a rezone to a smaller lot size requirement, or a lot line shift with an adjacent property.
Well, that just sounds like a great summary, Mr. Brown. I turn to my colleagues here on the Board of Zoning Appeals. Do you have any questions for staff?
Nope.
No? And Ms. Owens had said, can we see her? And we do not see her, but she also does not have questions. So if Mr. Robert Cox is here or his representative, would you kindly come to the,
We just saw, there she is.
okay, D. Owens is here. But Mr. Cox, if you would kindly come to the podium and sign in, and then I'll swear you in, and you'll have 15 minutes to relate to us what you want to do. And Dee, we can see you now.
Unfortunately, still no audio, Dee. I believe I can go back and check, but I believe the state statute on hybrid meetings, we have to see and hear you to count the vote. So that's why I mentioned, I saw that you shook your head yes and put it in the chat, but I will, just for sake of legality, I will count the 3 people in person. I apologize. And Tech Services is working on the issues of the in-room computer monitors as well as the online issue. We apologize.
Okay, thank you.
And if that's fixed in time, can we go back and change her votes? If it's fixed in time that you can hear and see her both?
I mean, if it's voted 3-0, yes, it's not
still
really going to matter. But
passes.
if there is a case that we don't have a
Yes.
majority, I would suggest that before you call the roll, you either continue it to the end or we
That's
wait
a
on
good
that.
suggestion.
Good plan.
Mr. Cox, would you kindly raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, talk to us.
Well, we moved there, me and my wife, and we've got 4 boys and 2 girls. So we've got 4 boys in 1 room, so that's why we're trying to do the add-on to give them some more space and another bathroom so they're not jumping around so much. And right now we can't have family dinners. We got, some in the kitchen and then some in the living room, so it's pretty much based on trying to have family time, and then earlier this year, my dad got diagnosed with
I'm sorry.
Huntington's.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah.
So that's why we want the dining room to be able to spend time with him while he still can.
Sounds like a good plan. It sounds like you have a beautiful family. You have 6 children and your father who wants to be involved, and it sounds like you have a wonderful solution for it. So,
I cannot imagine 4 boys in one bedroom. I can't get my head around that.
Yeah, it's pretty crammed in there. I have another one that's 18, but he's already moved out. So, but like I said, we moved there knowing that there was potential to add on, but we didn't know about the lot size and all that stuff. So,
okay. Well, let me ask my colleagues if they have any questions for you. No? I don't have any questions. And Ms. Owens, do you have any questions? She's online. She says she doesn't have any questions. So we're going to hear from the public now, from those in favor and opposed. And if anybody's opposed, you can come back. Okay? Are there members of the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please come to the podium or raise your virtual hand. We don't see anybody. Is there anybody opposed to this petition? We don't see anybody. So I move it back to us for a further discussion and/or a vote.
I move to approve Cox variance 24-39A, the Cox minimum lot size variance to Chapter 804, and also to approve variance 24-39B, the Cox minimum lot width variance to Chapter 804. Practical difficulties. That lot will never conform to any of the rules, and my goodness, do they have to have an addition.
Yes. Is there a second, Mr.? Yes, so if you would kindly call the roll.
The motion is to approve both VAR-24-39A and VAR-24-39B, which is the minimum lot size and minimum lot width variances to Chapter 804. A vote yes is a vote to approve. Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Pamela Davidson,
Yes.
Margaret Clements,
Yes?
and I'll look to Dee Owens, and she
She
is
said
shaking her head
yes.
yes.
Okay.
So the motion does carry.
Is your phone silent?
It is approved.
Look at that on that. See, it
Yeah.
looks like it's muted.
Yeah, it's okay. Let me finish this. So, Mr. and Mrs. Cox, your petition has been unanimously approved. Thank you for working so well with our staff. We appreciate your coming in and participating in this process, and good luck to you. Thank you, and I wish you many happy memories in your new dining room. Thank you. Okay, Dee, just from here, it looks like your microphone is muted, but I don't know if you unmuted, if we hear you. Will you speak? No, we can't hear you. Okay. Okay, just checking. Okay, so we move on to item number 5, VAR-24-41A, and item 6, VAR-24-41B. And this is the I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but when you come up, you can correct me. The Eco Area 1 variance concerning 1 acre of contiguous 12% slope to Chapter 825, in the Eco Area 1 variance of the 12% slope encroachment to Chapter 825 concerning 1 9.03 plus or minus acre parcel and 1 16.41 acre plus or minus parcel in Polk Township, Section 4 at 7407 South State Road 446 and 7415 South State Road 446. And Mr. Smith, if you would kindly clarify everything for us.
Absolutely.
Thank
And
you.
I believe it's Shay,
Oh,
right? Yes.
Shay.
Shay.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, so as Margaret stated, this is an Eco 1 variance been broken up into two different parts, one concerning 1 acre of contiguous 12% slope, and then the other concerning 12% slope encroachment. These are both Chapter 825, and the purpose is to construct a new residence and driveway at 7407 and 7415 South State Road 446. This proposal will include disturbing areas that are greater than 12% slope on a property that is in what we refer to as the Environmental Constraints Overlay Area 1, or ECO 1 for short, of the Lake Monroe watershed. So Chapter 825 states that for the ECO 1 area, a property is subject to a limit of not greater than 12% slope land disturbance and must have at least 1 acre of contiguous 12% slope. So the petitioner, if they do receive these variances, will engage in a lot line shift through a final plat amendment to the Chambers Type E subdivision so that the proposed residence will be on the property with the address known as 7415 South State Road 446. And again, this is pending the approval of the variance. So this will only occur if the variances are approved.
Okay.
And then on this, I apologize if the audience can't see it, but there are a lot of visuals, so I'm going to be going through those here. So on the screen, I currently have a location map and a site conditions map. You'll note that the site conditions map has a lot of red, and that red it consists of all areas that are greater than 12% slope.
It's a lot of slope.
And then what I have next on the screen is a map showing the environmental constraints overlay areas of the Lake Monroe watershed. So I have outlined in yellow the two properties. They are both in the ECO 1 area. And then on the screen, I do have the petitioner's site plan that was submitted to staff. They did a really good job of labeling all the different areas, and they also took photos coinciding with those areas. So we've got a black line here that demonstrates an existing driveway that is there, probably from logging in the past. And then we do have a dashed line which represents the petitioner's proposed driveway entrance. You'll note that it does come through access on the adjacent property. And then they've got outlined in green here their proposed building area. So they haven't necessarily decided on a specific location, but generally it's going to be within that 12% sloped area. And then there is also a white dashed line which represents what they hope to amend the lot line. So essentially the property on the right-hand side will accumulate that much of the property on the left if the variance is approved. And then these are just some aerial images. So this represents the property on the west-hand side. It is currently used and operated as a campground. And then the second property is currently a vacant parcel. And then these next photos were submitted on behalf of the petitioner. And again, they also went the extra mile to provide a site map showing the different locations of the photos, and I've got those listed on the right-hand side. So these are photos of the vacant parcel. And I'll leave it on the screen for just a brief moment since this was not in the packet. And then the second set of photos, these consist of the petitioner's proposal. So on the right-hand side, we've got where they labeled the roadway is, or the driveway, I should say, and then as well as where the new driveway entrance will be. And then I have a second slide for the second set of photos. actually, if you can see on the left-hand side, that image, you can kind of see where there does exist an existing driveway through there. Kind of looks like a line that waves through the ridge top there. And then are the second photos of the site. So the petitioner took photos of all the potential build sites, and then they also included an old bus that has been there for an X amount of time. So it's pretty flat once you get to the top of the hill. This leads us into a discussion. So staff did refer to the U.S. Geological Survey stream stats data, and we did discover that USGS does show a mapped stream that drains through the buildable area on Lot 1, so that's on the right-hand side. And that is what is currently allowed to construct a home on. So they otherwise could propose a home in this area. However, with this stream that's mapped there, that would significantly reduce the buildable area that they would even be able to construct there. And I believe in our ordinance we have a 100-foot buffer from streams. So you're taking essentially 100 feet and you're following that stream. So wherever that 100 feet is, you're taking away that buildable area. And this was not initially noted on the final plat. And the final plat's from 2016. So it's possible new data came about. So we're just trying to use the current data that we've got.
Yes.
And then from the U.S. Department of Agriculture Soil Conservation Service, planning staff did go the extra mile to look into the soil types of the area. So I really tried to summarize it in this slide. There's a more detailed analysis in the report, but essentially what we've got in blue here on the right-hand side is the current build site. So it encompasses an area where they could potentially construct a home. And then in the green here, we have the proposed build site, which is on the top of that hill. So both sites have different soil types. So in the blue, we've currently got the Brownstown Gilwood Silt Slopes, or BKF for short, and that is 25 to 75% slope soil type. So typically, usually found in very steep slopes, it's vulnerable to erosion, and it is also severely limiting specifically towards constructing dwellings on properties, and that is due to the slope and depth to bedrock and also just the overall sensitivity of the soil type. In green, which is what the proposed build site is, we have the Wellston Silt Loam, or WEC for short, which is 6 to 12% slope soil type, typically found in moderate to severe slopes. It's generally well drained because typically you find these on ridge tops, so the water is going to be draining down into the valley. It's generally seen as less vulnerable, aka more stable than the BKF soil type, but it is still regarded as a sensitive soil type. It's just generally seen as moderately limiting in scope when it comes to constructing dwellings. So if you had to summarize it even further, the Brownstown is severe, the Wellston is moderate.
So the Wellston is an improved location.
It's an improved location. Here we have the petitioner's letter, and in the letter, they're just stating what their request is and also referencing their attachments, their exhibits, which are what we kind of went through in those previous slides. I'm happy to come back if the board or the petitioner would like me to. But it is also in the report. And then this leads us to staff's recommendation. So for the Eco 1 requirements for 1 acre of contiguous 12% slope, staff does recommend approval based on the fact that practical difficulties have been demonstrated. The property cannot meet the 1 acre of contiguous 12% slope requirement, which would prevent any further development of the property. So we are recommending approval for that. And then for the second half, the 12% slope encroachment, we do recommend approval with conditions. So condition number 1 being that the variance is limited to the construction of the driveway only as it's shown on the petitioner's site plan. So not referring to any sort of construction, just the driveway itself. And then number 2, that the petitioner work with a surveyor or engineer to design the exact driveway location to minimize tree removal and erosion control. So the petitioner is requesting about 300 feet of land disturbance, and that's all within the 12% slope area for a new driveway access. However, staff believes this will provide a more suitable building location in the end. But I did also want to point out, because there's a lot going on here, that planning staff did consult with stormwater, and they did state one way or the other, no matter which building site that the petitioner chooses to go with, there would be a need for an extensive stormwater review, and there would be a need for logging and stormwater permits, and each of those would be reviewed extensively by stormwater given the sensitivity of the watershed area. And then, of course, these are requirements that would need approval before any building permit could be issued. So does the board have any questions?
Those last conditions you just outlined, those are not our purview. Another department ensures all those things happen, other than the two conditions you listed at the
Right.
beginning of that summary.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Loftman, do you have questions?
I do not.
And Ms. Owens asked what was the name of the campground that is adjacent to this property? We can
I
ask.
believe it was called the Monroe Causeway Campground, LLC.
Okay. And, you know, I really appreciate your thorough discussion of these soil types because it helps not only us, but the homeowners understand what they're facing as they contemplate developing and what kind of costs and obstacles you may encounter going forward. But that being said, Mr. and Mrs. Shea, if you would like to come to the podium, I don't know if I made an assumption there, if you're married or spouses. Okay, so if you would kindly come to the podium and sign in, and then I'll swear you in, and then you'll have 15 minutes to talk with us about your proposal.
Sure.
Would you kindly raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay,
right.
thank you for coming tonight.
Sure, thank you. And first of all, thanks Sean for really explaining it very well. So we are, my wife and myself, are owner of Monroe Causeway Campground with address 7407, which is on the west side of the two lanes Sean showed earlier. And we recently bought the land next to us, which is 7415 South State Road 446, with the plan to build our own house over there so we can really stay away from campground with some privacy, so that's the whole purpose. But with a further evaluation of the land, originally we thought there is a built area in the map Sean shared. But further looking into that, really there's a creek running through. It is muddy and with slope and wet. So we feel it is very difficult to build a house over there. So, but luckily there's a piece of the land which belongs to campground right now, which is on the top of a hill. I believe that piece of land originally, probably 20 years ago, was used as part of the campground because of the school bus you all see in the picture.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
there actually there's a driveway go up to the hill or to the area where we plan to build a house. But at the very beginning of that pathway is just very steep. So it's not we feel it is not safe to use as a regular driveway for a home. So that's the reason, besides we propose using the area which currently belong to the campground, we're going to trying to move the boundary so it belongs to 7415. Besides using that area as the building area, we also propose a 300-feet driveway in order for us to gain access to that top of the hill building area from 7415 South State Road 446. Yeah. Any question?
I'm looking at the map that Mr. Smith put up, and I am seeing the small section of the driveway that helps to ameliorate the steep slope, and it looks like a good recommendation as far as I'm concerned. But with that being said, I don't have any questions myself for Mr. Shea. Do you, Mr. Loftman?
Again, I'm looking at this map, which you can't see, unfortunately.
Sure.
But it looks like the new driveway is going to be about the same length as the old driveway.
Actually, sorry, I cannot see the picture. If you see the contour,
yes.
Actually, the new driveway is same length, but it's actually at a much slower altitude change. So it's
much less steep.
Yes.
But about the same length.
About the same length.
Okay.
Yes. Actually, it replaced the original very steep driveway with similar length of driveway, but for less altitude change.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding this, that the lengths are pretty much the same.
Yes.
So we're taking a completely unsatisfactory driveway and replacing it with about the same amount of driveway.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My question is for staff. Is there any concern about the size of the new home given the constraints of the property? Is there any limitation on that?
As far as staff is concerned, it just needs to fit neatly into that 12% slope. So whenever you do decide on a square footage of a home and you have a certified plot plan, we'll be looking specifically for those 12% slope measurements from the surveyor or engineer, whoever you go with.
Thank you.
And do you have another question?
Well,
Yes?
yeah, I do for staff. If they wanted to use this 25% slope, would they be able to proceed without the variance for that? They'd still need to move the lot line. But would they be able to use that driveway, but from a planning department perspective?
Do you mean the existing driveway or the
The
proposed?
existing driveway.
The existing driveway?
We're getting closer.
Yes, so they could technically, if they just did simple maintenance to that very steep driveway and it got them all the way to the buildable area and it involved no land disturbance, they could go ahead and use that today. I'm not sure if the entirety of that area wouldn't involve any part of land disturbance, but hypothetically, if it did not, they could use it without a variance.
They could just throw some gravel on there and get a small tank and drive up there as is.
That's correct.
Okay, does Ms. Owens have any questions? I don't see any. So we're going to open it up now to the public, and if the public has any questions or any testimony in favor of this proposal, please come to the podium or raise your virtual hand, and you can have a seat. And if anybody opposes this, we'll come back to you. Okay? If there's any member of the public who would like to speak in opposition to this petition, please come to the podium or raise your virtual hand to be recognized. And I don't see anybody.
No, I don't think so. And Dee, will you mind just unmuting and seeing if it works now for you to speak? No? Okay. We
Okay.
have somebody, they're actively working on it. Okay,
Okay.
thanks. Just checking.
Okay, so we come back to the members of the Board of Zoning Appeals for further discussion and/or a motion.
Well, my slogan of the month that applies to so many things is, there are no solutions, just
Sorry, Guy,
trade-offs.
could you speak into the mic just for the transcript?
Sure. There are no solutions, just trade-offs.
Yes.
And this, they've got a giant, not a giant piece of land, but they've got a big piece of land. They've got a business which they want to make more practical for them to build, to operate. The place they could build at the bottom would be all sorts of problems. This solves problems. It's the trade-off is needing this variance and then jumping through more hoops. But
Yes.
in terms of, and usually I'm very careful about the 12% slope, but I think the trade-off in this case, they could just use the existing driveway,
Yes.
which would be completely unsatisfactory. So I think the trade-offs are in favor of allowing this, and in light of that, I move approval of variance 2441A, Eco 1 requirement to Chapter 825, and variance 2441B, 12% of slope encroachment, the 41B with the conditions that, one, the variance is limited to the construction of the driveway as shown on the petitioner's site plan, and the petitioner work with a surveyor engineer to design the exact location of the driveway to minimize tree removal and erosion control. But the practical difficulties have been shown, making this the appropriate resolution.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve VAR-24-41A and VAR-24-41B, which is the Shea Eco Area 1 variance to 1 acre contiguous less than 12%, and the Eco Area 1 variance to the 12% slope encroachment. A vote yes is a vote to approve, and I apologize, did that include the conditions?
Yes.
Yes, okay,
Yes, it
with
did.
the two conditions as stated in the staff report. Pamela Davidson,
Yes.
Margaret Clements,
Yes.
Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Dee Owens is
She's-
shaking her head.
She's shaking her head yes, so
Thank
it's
you.
unanimous. And thank you for this exceptional report and the studies that you
Right,
did and
right.
demonstrated to us. And thank you for working so well with our planning department, who we have so much respect for. So your request has been approved, and we wish you the best of luck for all the other processes you'll go through, but we're here to help, okay? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we move on now to item number 7, and that's CDU-24-3, and that's the Bozarth, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, am I? Okay. Automotive repair, conditional use to Chapter 813 concerning 15.6 plus or minus acre parcel in Bloomington Township, Section 31, at 3425 West Vernal Pike. And Mr. Smith, we look forward to hearing from you on this.
Sure. So as Margaret stated, the request is for an automotive repair, which is conditional in the limited industrial, or IL, zoning type. So that is the purpose for the petition here. And as the petitioner has stated, he would like to utilize approximately 1.7 acres of this parcel to extend the parking lot at his business at 1077 North Air Drive. The petitioner's business, also known as Advanced Auto Care, is located within the Enterprise PUD, which stands for Plan Unit Development, while the subject property is directly adjacent to the west in the IL zone. So these are two different zoning types. The petitioner has currently put in an offer on the property to purchase from the current property owner, pending the approval of this request. So on the map here, we've got the site conditions and location map As far as site conditions are concerned, staff doesn't really notice anything that pops out to us. Of course, when the petitioner works with an engineer or surveyor to draw up their site plan, they will note of any environmental concerns should they exist. As with all conditional uses, we do refer to the Monroe County Comprehensive Plan. So for this area in particular, it is identified as being primarily employment-based, with a smaller area that's dedicated to open space. So the employment area being all the areas in purple, and then the green areas being for open space. So basically, employment includes uses like light industrial, manufacturing. It might even include office use or some type of warehousing or other commercial uses that may or may not fit into otherwise mixed-use areas. So staff does believe that automotive repair is a use that is compatible with the employment area. Also, as with every conditional use, they do have to meet the conditions in Chapter 813, which are letters A through I. I'm more than willing to go through each and every one of these, but the areas that are, or I should say the text that is in green means green light, it's good to go. They meet those requirements. Again, I can come back.
That's very helpful. I love the way you present this, and I don't have questions about any of the conditional use requirements. Do you?
Not.
Okay, so thank you for that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So on the right-hand side, we have the petitioner's site plan, and then on the bottom where the blue arrow is going, I just created a really quick staff site plan to just kind of show an aerial image, and then, of course, the petitioner's site plan is on the right. So basically, where they're just on the staff site plan, the building with the red roof, that is the Advanced Auto Care building. So essentially, he just wants to acquire that 1.7 acres right there. And that is where the extension of the parking lot where he can store vehicles to be worked on will be stored. So there's no building expansion, no utility expansion. It's just a parking lot is what it will be for.
Oh, great.
And then these are some site photos from a staff visit. So the bottom middle image, that is the area that is directly behind the business. So essentially that is where the parking lot would be going. And then as you can tell from the images, they are a very busy auto care business. So as the petitioner stated in their letter, they are simply out of parking spaces and they need to expand. And then on the screen, both are in the packet, but just the petitioner's letter as well as the owner consent. So the petitioner does not own the property currently, but the owner did provide consent for this conditional use request. Staff did receive a letter of support, which I did provide to the Board of Zoning Appeals as well as to the petitioner. To really summarize what this letter is about, it's from a lawyer who represents an adjacent property owner who is otherwise generally supportive of the petition. They did want to respectfully ask of the BZA to consider 3 conditions, the first being that the conditional use be limited solely to the 1.7 acre parcel of land. The second one being that if it's approved, that the petitioner actually complete the lot line shift adjustment. And then, of course, number 3, which is that further development of the 1.71 acre site be conditioned on maintaining the buffer and existing tree canopy. I will say from staff standpoint that any commercial site plan does have to provide a buffer to adjoining properties, and I do believe the petitioner stated that they would like to preserve those areas, so they can, of course, expand on that. And this leads me to staff's recommendation for the conditional use, which is approval. based on the fact that they are able to meet all of the criteria in Chapter 813. So just to recap, if the conditional use is approved, the use of automotive repair would take effect once the petitioner's proposed lot line shift between 1077 North Air Drive and the property at 3425 West Vernal Pike has been completed. And this would involve a final plat amendment as well as a Type E subdivision, which are planning processes that would be done administratively through our department. And then once the petitioner has completed these planning processes, then they will file for a new commercial site plan, which would encompass the newly acquired acreage. And then, of course, any inability to meet the site plan requirements requires a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals. So if they get to the site plan stage and then they discover they can't meet a condition for whatever reason and they would like to consider a variance, then they would be back here. So does anybody have any questions?
I do. The letter we received, I understand about the buffer. What a good rule. The other two conditions that are outlined here, would those be things you would also be supportive of?
Yeah, so the petitioner would already have to perform that lot line shift, so that would
Yes.
already be part of it.
Right.
And then, of course, part of the site plan review is that there is a buffer yard. And there is, I don't know if let's see if I can bring up the image here. But as you can see, there is a lot of tree coverage here. So
Yes.
they could very easily meet that buffer yard requirement if they preserve those. If they chose not to preserve them, they might have to do landscaping.
Dee, would you mind testing your mic now?
I'm glad to do it. I have no
Okay.
questions for Sean.
Hear you?
Okay. Okay.
She has a question.
Oh, yes. Do you have a question, Ms. Owens?
No, I do not.
You finished?
Just clarify the answer with Pamela's question about the 1.71 acre, I spoke with Mr. Schilling, our legal counsel, about this petition since he has a conflict tonight. He's actually in Brown County at their Plan Commission meeting tonight. But he said that if the Board of Zoning Appeals wish to condition the conditional use to be limited to just the 1.71 acres, they could. Now, the petitioner has expressed that they're interested in utilizing this use to expand their 1077 North Air Drive property on the east. However, if they got this conditional use as noticed and as presented in the packet, it technically does apply to all 15 acres. So if they sold it to somebody else, they could utilize a vast majority of the property to use the automotive use. So I don't want to misrepresent, but the petitioner's stated purpose is to only utilize 1.71 acres. So,
And as you noted, and from the photos, there's a lot of tree cover, so the buffer is going to always be easy to do. And that is a very important consideration for what we do.
yes, and as Sean mentioned, the buffer yard will be a requirement. The tree canopy preservation is not yet a requirement, though it is under the CDO for the public's review. We are hoping to propose a better tree canopy preservation standard, but as of today, we don't have a tree canopy preservation.
Thank you.
So can we put as a condition that this would only apply to the 1.7 acres?
You could. This is a rough measurement. The only thing so we had asked the applicant in the beginning if they wanted to provide a legal description. That would be done by a surveyor to show us the exact dimensions of the area. We went back and forth, and I think they decided just to apply for the entire property. If you were to limit it based on the site plan before you, you could do that. If the petitioner needs more area, they will have to come back and amend that condition. So I would just say, if the petitioner, when they come and speak, is sure that all they'll need is 1.71 acres and they would agree to that condition, then yes, I think that would be okay.
And I've had the petitioner's intention is to use this for a parking lot. But if we approve it, they'd still have to jump through various hoops, but they could expand their building into that area with this. It's not limited to a parking lot.
Correct.
If we wanted, could we limit it to use as a parking lot in association with the auto repair?
So I think the conditional use before you is for auto repair. Ultimately, what they're providing to us in statements and with the type E, they'll be combining the lot. So I do think that in approving this conditional use for auto repair, it would be difficult to say the findings support a parking lot as part of an automotive repair use, but not a structure. But if you want me to research that further, I could.
No.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I understand what's happening, because I like to try to do
To
that.
clarify, so the parking lot is just to store vehicles that they are going to be essentially working on. So it's serving the business. So it's part of the business. It's not just like a standalone parking lot. It is serving the business. So it's kind of intertwined.
Yes.
Yeah. The representations that people make when they come to us become part of the record and part of the limitations, as I recall. And this has clearly been presented as a parking area in association with this building. And it seems to me if it ever comes up again, that's probably sufficient commitment that we don't need to look for any other condition. I don't feel the need to introduce other conditions. Does that seem a sensible approach to you?
I think if we hear from the petitioner themselves too, they may have a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 plan. We may be looking at phase 1.
My questioning of you is
Okay.
done until
Yes.
maybe later I'll need to.
And you are correct. Generally speaking, one of the findings for board members and for variance petitions specifically is you're taking in testimony. So we can always revert back to the meeting minutes. However, for historical reasons, administration reasons, it is nice to have it clearly defined in a condition of approval. We can go back to a results letter and minutes, poring over minutes and checking to see what assumptions were made. That can take a little bit more time. So that's why we like clarity.
I'd just like to say to my colleague here that from my perspective, it's zoned, with the limited industrial zone. And I think it would probably be unfair to limit them to just a parking lot when it's zoned for limited industrial. But that being said, Mr. Bozarth or Ms. Pierce or whoever would like to talk in the 15 minutes the petitioner has, please come up and sign in, and then I'll swear you in. And thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for working with us. And I really enjoyed the presentation. It's very clear. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you
Would you mind
guys.
if I swear you in? If you would.
I absolutely do not mind.
Okay, please raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So this is my wife, Heather. I've asked her to come, if for nothing else, emotional support. So I would just like to start off by thanking Sean Smith. So I think we've probably all heard horror stories about interacting with governmental offices, whether it be here or anywhere. And I would say that my experience with that has been nothing but the complete opposite. Sean's been wonderful. He's been amazing at helping guide me. I would say I am dramatically out of my depth here with regard to what we're talking about. I have never developed property. I've never bought raw property to develop on a scale like this. Frankly, nor did I have any intention to. We're fortunate in that in 2018 we bought Advanced Auto Care from the gentleman that started it. He is a wonderful human being, built a great business that the citizens of Monroe County have been kind enough to give us more business than we can handle. That growth, honestly, has accelerated with the success of our staff. I don't take any credit for that. It's all the folks that work for me. I've got wonderful people that work for me, and we've got magnificent customers. As a result of that, we're faced with a problem that we just don't have anywhere to put vehicles waiting to be worked on and waiting to be picked up. It's a great problem to have. I'm not for a second complaining about it, and please don't think that I am. However, it is a problem nonetheless. And so we are on the cusp with the folks that we have right now of big opportunities for growth. And I've looked at about every exhausted possibility to figure out a solution to that parking problem. And frankly, next up is, I'm afraid we're going to outgrow the building in and of itself. To be quite honest with you, my wife and I are self-made, and we don't have a bank account big enough to build a brand new building somewhere else, which is exactly what I would love to do. I've looked at trying to find parking off-site and somehow shuttling customers to and from, but honestly, the liability excludes us from being able to do that. Nor do I feel comfortable leaving somebody's car that has been entrusted in our charge without our oversight on it on any level. I've looked at buying and repurposing a building. I don't find any good solutions there, and I've looked at options of building a new building, and to be quite frank, we just can't afford it. So we're in a unique position right now where we're talking about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to park cars, which is hard to believe that that's a real conversation, but that's the position that we're in. My initial approach to the folks that were selling this property was to ask for part of it. I don't want 15 acres worth of property. I don't need 15 acres worth of property, and to be quite honest with you, I don't know what we're going to do with it. But we have a problem that is a problem that's in front of us with no easy solution to. So that's how we've ended up here. Sean has done a great job explaining to you what I'm thinking, what I'm talking about doing. To be quite honest with you, I want to disrupt as little bit as we can possibly disrupt, whether it be the property, whether it be our operation, whether it be a bank account trying to pay excavators in there tearing forestry down or whatever the case is. That's not what we do. That's not what I want to spend my time doing. That's not where I want to put my attention and my money to do it. Now, with that being said, I didn't expect that we would be here 6 years ago where we would be outgrowing our building this fast and to this degree. So what does 6 years from now look like? I don't know. If our good fortune continues, it's hard telling. So if we have 15 acres at our disposal, I'd be lying to you if I said that we would never have an opportunity or a desire to use that in some capacity. I don't know. But I can tell you right now, our immediate need is we just need a place to put cars. So that's how we've gotten here. That's where we've come up to this position. And so could I see us outgrowing our current building and wanting to build a new building somewhere on that property? Absolutely. I think there's a lot of hurdles that are in the way of us doing that, but nonetheless, if that's a solution to our problem, and it's the easiest and most achievable solution, well, we probably ought to not get in our own way in terms of growing our business and serving the folks in Monroe County that are kind enough to bring their cars to us and trust them to fix us. So that's why we're here. That's what we're doing. And I don't mean for this to be hyperbole, but quite literally, our ability to grow our company is in your hands. So I'm really asking you to understand and appreciate the situation that we're in and help me out by allowing us the opportunity to create a place where we can park some cars and continue to grow our business, support our staff, and support our customers. So I don't know if it's common for me to take questions, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
We tend to ask some questions, and I have
Sure.
one. And that is, have you seen this letter from the Paganelli Law Group?
So I did. I just saw that because Sean was kind enough to give me that letter whenever I walked in. So I hadn't seen it prior to now. I would guess that never, prior to about an hour ago, saw it, never spoken to them, don't know who they are. So give me a little latitude here when I say this, but I would suspect that we probably align more on what we want to achieve than we disagree on. I can see lots of problems if we don't respect the neighbor's property lines. We respect their privacy, expect them to respect us. How do you do that? What does it look like? I'm not sure. But I can understand, I think, what they're asking for, and I think we would probably agree more than we would disagree.
But on the specific request for a condition, this is the one, I think Sean successfully guided us through. Two of the conditions would not be in conflict, like the buffer
Right.
and the type E subdivision. But the one I'm not sure if you're willing to stipulate, and if you have any hesitations at all, we need to know it, and that is that this conditional use for limited industrial be limited solely to the 1.7 acres of land that you're subdividing. Is that onerous to you, or?
Yeah, so, I guess I'll answer that question like I take an approach to life, and I'll just tell you exactly what I think,
Yeah.
because I find it's a whole lot easier to do that. So I made up 1.7 acres. I have absolutely no idea how much property I need. I don't know if I need a football field or if I need a half a mile. I have no idea. The only reason that I would push back against that on any level would be I really don't want to relitigate this 2.5 years from now. However, I respect the position that they're coming from. I understand the implication that we're talking about doing here with making changes, sweeping changes potentially to a 15-acre parcel. I understand that. Can I say, standing here in front of you right now, that at no time in the future would I ever not put an automotive repair facility on a different corner of the thing? I can't say that because I don't know what the future is going to bring. I can tell you that 1.7 acres is a number that I made up, and the reason I made that number up is because it would bring our total parcel to 3 acres. But what does that site look like as we start to try and build a parking lot? I just don't know. And so is that enough property? I'm not sure. So the only reason I would push back against that would be the potential need to relitigate this problem over again in the future. Outside of that, I don't really have an issue with that because, again, I'm going to end up with 12 or 13 acres of property that I don't need, frankly, don't really want, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. So what it's zoned, I don't know that I'm going to care unless I have an exact need for it that's going to help us do what we do in a bigger capacity better for the folks that walk through our front door.
Okay, now, do you, my colleagues, do you have questions for Mr. Bozarth?
It's a little thorny. The owner who's selling it
Yep.
doesn't want this conditional use on the entire property. He just wants it on what you're buying. Is how I understand
Well,
this
I guess
letter.
maybe I'm confused about that because that wasn't my understanding, that it's the owner of the property currently that submitted that letter. Maybe I'm mistaken about that, I don't know.
Guy, the letter was submitted by an adjacent property owner. It wasn't submitted by the property owner of this parcel.
Well, I'm sorry, I misunderstood that, and thank you for
Yeah.
getting me.
Well, it's possible I would have misunderstood it as well.
I
so.
didn't understand that either.
Yeah.
I submitted 12 folks that have property around that.
Right.
Spoke to 2 of them in person. So again, I'm not trying to build a factory that's going to be keeping folks up at night. No, I'm not trying to do anything like that. So I wouldn't want, somebody to think that some gigantic developer is going to come sweeping in and buy this property, because that's just not who we are, and that's not what we're looking at right now. So.
Okay, I'm going to reread this letter now that I understand who it's from. It said that, but I didn't have the pieces put together.
We're going to pull up the GIS to show you who the remonstrate, or the letter of support, I shouldn't say remonstrate, the letter of support is coming from in comparison to the property.
Tina Pierce is the owner, and I believe the neighbor is Bach Investments, LLC.
And they're to the south.
To the
So
south.
Sean will show the screen.
And so I'm not even sure who they would be, because the southernmost portion of this property unless you're talking about the southwest corner, the southern part of this almost looks like a tail on the map. I've not even been down there, don't know what it looks like. I don't know anything about that, so.
Okay, so if you see on the screen outlined in blue, that is where the letter is coming from. And then if you look directly north, that is the property in question.
Oh, I see.
Could you scroll so that we can see more of Mr. Bozarth's proposed property? Okay. So, and I see.
Now, the one that the cursor is on, is that the whole property? This is the 1.7 acres, just part of it, or is that?
That's correct. So
15.61.
Okay.
Yep. And where with the cursor is the business located? Is it up where the cursor is right now?
Oh, it's up by the street, closer to the street, right?
Yeah, 1077.
do you mean, which business do you mean?
The automotive business.
Okay, yep, it's right here.
It's right there, so it's close to the owner of the letter. Okay.
And so that, he's just got a lot of land that he's just working his job and doing his business, but it doesn't involve that land at this moment. But Mr., Ms. Parker at Paganelli Law wants him to limit that larger portion of land from limited industrial conditional use approval.
I do want to mention that even if this conditional use approval does limit the auto repair to a certain acreage, it doesn't rezone the property. So the property stays the way it's zoned, and it could always, as long as the code allows, allow for conditional use for automotive repair. But with the CDO changing, I think that it would be important to take into consideration the testimony and make the best decision possible, because if this use is not going to be eligible under their under the CDO zoning, that will be something that is factored into their business model in the future.
Is it?
I will check that. Now that you
Okay,
mention that.
but so if I understand correctly, because I've got to, there's a lot going on here.
Quite all right.
The 15.61 acre tract that concerns the Paganelli group, law group, and Ms. Parker, if Mr. Bozarth wanted to do something to expand his advanced auto part, he'd still end up coming back here, because it would require a conditional use approval for that 15.61 acres, and we're only approving 1.71 acres tonight. That's what's before us, right?
The site plan is showing you 1.71 acres.
Yes.
The notice that went out was for the entire property. So it's not a condition of approval right now that it's limited, because they asked to apply for the whole property.
I see.
They have shown you a site plan that shows a particular area that they could expand.
I see.
But unless it's conditioned specifically, it may not be clear that we could limit them from developing the rest of the 15 acres.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, it would be up to the board if you wanted to place that condition or not.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you'll have to forgive me. I'm a pretty simple individual. You got to talk to me sometimes like you would a golden retriever, which is why Sean's been really helpful, because he breaks it down in ways I can understand.
does.
So I would say that from my seat, and again, give me some latitude about maybe taking some liberties here, just talking about things that I don't know to be fact. But if you would walk out of my building currently and look south, that property jets up pretty sharply, pretty quickly. Something up there sounds like, if you would walk out after 5 o'clock, sounds like maybe there's a restaurant or a bar or something like that maybe up there. Again, I don't know that to be fact, but I would suspect that's the property that they're probably concerned about the expansion of the permitted use to the entire thing. The one piece that I would say to that is, if you have ever been to the area where Advanced Auto Care is currently,
Yes.
there's a lot of stuff around there that already makes a whole lot of noise, and is folks working with their hands and building and fixing things kind of all over the place. I'm not trying to sell you on the notion that you would grant the thing to the entire 15 acres, but the point that I would make is I would find it hard to believe that it's going to create much of a life change for those that neighbor that property much, because there's an auto body shop that I could throw something and hit their door. There's a trucking company and a waste disposal company right across the street and a trailer repair place. So in terms of life and living around folks that have businesses like this, I think those that are around us, certainly somebody that we share a property line with, it may be in a corner or something, they're kind of already living around that. So I don't know that even if you granted this and we expanded beyond 1.7 acres in the future, I don't know that it changes much the life of those folks that either have a company, a house, whatever the case is surrounding that existing property. So again, my opinion, take it for what it's worth.
Well, we do have an obligation to hear from the public.
Absolutely.
And we'll hear from, and Mr. Loftman has a question.
Well, the owner, Tina Pierce, is here, is that correct?
I don't know. To be quite honest with you, I've never met her, so I don't know.
Okay. And I'm looking at I happen to have her affidavit here, is she consents to the authority to act on behalf of the matter. So it's impossible for me to tell whether she cares whether this goes to the whole property or not from this letter. But if she's not here, she can't clarify it.
Well, I think she only cares insofar as she needed to give permission for me to try and enact changes on a piece of property that she currently owns.
Yeah.
But I don't think she has any additional property in the area outside of that 15 point whatever acres. So I think if this use change is granted, I don't know that it affects her one way or another. So she certainly has not laid out any sort of objection to me or my realtor or anything like that. So none that I'm aware of.
Thank you. I have no more questions.
And I'll check with Ms. Owens to see if she has a question.
I do, not so much a question, but as a comment. I think that Mr. Bozarth has been crystal clear about what he wants to do, what he's capable of doing, and what he doesn't want to do. I did not find the letter to be from Ms. Parker to be compelling. It didn't sound, in fact, to me like a letter of support. It sounded to me like a letter of conditions. And so I would just say that I think it's time to move on. I think we've heard what I need. I've heard what I need to hear.
Okay, well, we'll hear from the public next, those in favor and those opposed, and chances are Ms. Parker will be here and to speak, but virtually or something. So if there is opposition to your request, you'll have a 5-minute opportunity to respond.
Okay.
Okay, so
All right.
I'm going to open it up now to the
Sure.
public who is in favor of this petition. If there are members of the public here in this room, come to the podium. If there are members who are attending online, please raise your virtual hand. Oh, yes, please, sir. Come to the podium and sign in, and then I'll swear you in. And please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And could you state your name and...
Yes, my name's Justin Borough. I'm actually general manager for Matt's operation in Bloomington. Has another store
great.
in Columbus. And,
But you'll have 3 minutes just to let you know.
I just wanted to tell you, I've been in the car business a long time. I've worked for Matt since April. And the more people that we're able to allow to park at our facility, honestly, the more people we can help in the community from being overcharged, misdiagnosed, things of that nature. I can tell you, since I walked through the door in April, we've done nothing but grow and done so in the right way, ethically and morally grounded as a business, looking out for our customers. So anything that can be done to expedite permitting this to occur, I can tell you, as his manager and a guy that works for him every day, I would really appreciate it. So, and he's a man of integrity and a man of his word. I can tell you that.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Are there other members of the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? If so, please raise your virtual hand or come to the podium. Are there members of the public who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? Please come to the podium in the Nat Hill courtroom or raise your virtual hand. Okay, we see no hand raised. So, yes, sir. Could you come to the podium? We need you to speak into the microphone so that we have a transcript. I'm sorry. And then I also need you to sign in. And would you kindly raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
My name is Fred Cooksey, and I have property bordering this property. But the problem is there's a driveway between me and my neighbor that was set aside by the first owner. So the acreage that he's wanting to talk about is the massive 15 acres behind, but I'm concerned with the road bed that could be there in the future. And I've been there since '72, and the owner of the property, he used to run cattle there. It was mowed and bush hogged off and everything, but since he passed away, it is growing up and it's all trees everywhere. But the concern I have, as well as my neighbor, Larry Baldwin, is that the corridor between me and my neighbor was set aside for a roadway in to develop this property. But since the county and the state has upgraded Vernal Pike to where it is a racetrack there anymore, our traffic has went 4 times what it used to be because of I-69. So we are concerned that developing this property beyond the acre or 2 he wants for parking would maybe entail this driveway that was, it's on the well, site plan or whatever. We're concerned that road bed could be put in between us and on Vernal Pike. So that's the only concern I have, is this little strip of land, what's going to happen to it?
Okay, and I'm going to turn to staff now. Right. And do you know about this easement?
So it's actually not an easement. If Sean is to select the property on Elevate, there's a fee simple strip. It's what we call flag lot. So there's a small strip that goes and has frontage along Vernal Pike. We've talked to the petitioner about how they wish to access the property, which is through the private development to the east. That is an easement, so they will be looking into, and we've pointed them towards discussing that with any possible attorney or anyone like that to extend the easement from Air Drive to basically approach or enter the property to the west. But right now, the site plan that's before the BZA, what they're showing us is that they would access from the east. That's not to say that any future development could not possibly enter from West Vernal.
Yes, but well, that's the concern me and my neighbor have, is this little piece of property that me and my neighbor has been mowing since '68 and taking care of for the owner of the property. Is we're concerned with that because if a road bed goes in there, it's going to change the whole atmosphere of the whole area there.
But your concern, sir, is that beyond the variance we're looking at here tonight? Because that will be an issue that presents itself if that development happens. Am I right about that?
So the conditional use that you see that's been presented is for the 15.61 acres to have automotive repair. What the petitioner's site plan is showing and what they're requesting is potentially to do a lot line shift to make this 15 acres smaller. And what they're going to utilize of that 15-acre portion for this specific use is going to come off of Air Drive, which is to the development to the east.
One question. You keep stating 15.6 acres?
Yes.
It includes this driveway?
Yes.
I mean, okay.
That's correct.
That's included in this property, right?
It is.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. But if someone were to want to develop this property with a by right development, that access point to West Vernal is there. It is part of this property, and potentially it could be developed. This petitioner is one of the first petitioners we've had where they actually owned adjacent property. I think that there's been concerns by other potential buyers that that strip isn't wide enough to create a driveway that may meet highway standards. So it may be self-limiting, but we haven't gotten that far with anyone that wishes to develop this lot. And we'd be happy to talk with you more after as well.
Me and my neighbor had talked to the previous owner about buying that, but he wouldn't do it because of the fact that he didn't know if he could develop his acreage behind us unless he had that property. But we have offered to buy that little strip.
Yes.
And split it.
You could talk with the petitioner after.
Okay, well, I'll just put that on the record.
Well,
Okay.
that's a good, and Mr. Bozarth, I think, wants to respond to that. So I'm sure you'll be interested to hear what he says. Yeah.
So I am absolutely sympathetic to what you're saying. I walked up to the house that has the drive there and spoke to probably your neighbor before I just stuck a sign in their yard because I wouldn't want somebody to do that to me. I think that's the worst access point for this property that you could possibly find. So I wasn't able to submit this because the case had closed online, but however, I have reached out to Cowden Enterprises, and Cowden Enterprises is the private property owner of Enterprise Park. And I have a letter here from Cowden Enterprises that says what they are willing to enter negotiations for, which is what I think makes the absolute most sense. Venture Boulevard, which I don't know if you can see it, but it's here. Venture Boulevard is an absolute no-brainer access point to this property should you want to develop this in the future. Yes. It's roads that are already traveled by semis and 18-wheelers and all that kind of stuff. There is absolutely nothing that makes sense about trying to develop a commercial driveway in the middle of somebody's, I mean, you'd be 9 feet from somebody's garage.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a terrible access point. I think Venture Boulevard makes way more sense. And the folks at Don Cowden have indicated to me that they are willing to enter into negotiations to allow access from Venture Boulevard into that 3425. So your question, I think, really has two folds to it. The first one being, how would we get to the 1.7 acres? And if you look at the north end of 1077 Air Drive, our parking lot is paved around the building. So on the north side, it dies straight into that property. And at the northernmost part of our drive is almost exactly on plane with this property at 3425. So for us to access the 1.7 acres where we're going to park cars, that's where we would do it. Now, again, I don't want to mislead anybody and say that I can't, 15 years from now, we don't want to develop or sell off something or whatever the case is. The only way that I think that this makes sense to access the rest of this property is through Venture Boulevard. Now, how do we do that? Can we get that done, and what's involved with that? I don't know, but I can tell you that Cowden Enterprises is open to that conversation. And I think that I'm confident that they, at least so far, have seemed incredibly reasonable. They're not trying to be hard to get along with. They just want to make sure that things are done correctly and taken care of and so forth. But I would say, I don't think that I'm talking too far out of school here to say, that's probably issue number 2 for me. Number 1 being parking. Number 2 means, okay, how do we access this property? And if we gain access from Venture Boulevard, I think that piece of property that goes between your 2 properties needs to go to you. Because I don't think there's anywhere else that thing should be used to access this property. I just don't think it makes sense. Okay, it's really steep, and it's right in the, it'd be like somebody driving through your backyard.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, good.
Are you satisfied, sir, Mr. Cooksey?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
You guys want to see this letter? I'd be happy to give it to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
The staff should have it.
Yes, the staff should have it.
Yes.
I'll also note, just for the CDO, this property is drafted as being zoned light industrial, so similar. It's currently zoned limited industrial, which is the fringe area.
Mr. Bozarth?
In addition, the use of automotive/boat repair will be permitted. It won't be a conditional use under the CDO, so it would just be permitted if they can meet the design standards.
I see. So, Mr. Loftman, you have a question for Mr. Bozarth?
Yeah, the letter you just submitted was from who?
So Cowden Enterprises, they own an Enterprise Park where 1077 Air Drive is and all the adjacent businesses in that PUD. So the roads that are inside that development are privately owned. And that property was developed by Don Cowden. Well, he's obviously passed, and so his foundation owns that property at this point. So if we're going to gain access to 3425 Vernal Pike from Venture Boulevard, they are the only ones that stand in the way of us being able to do that. And they've indicated that they are willing to enter into negotiations. And I'll be honest with you and transparent. They want to get out of owning and being responsible for those roads that are in that industrial complex. They expected the county to take that over, and for this reason or that reason, that did not happen. So when I spoke to Tom, who's the gentleman that I reached out to about that letter, Tom had said that if I would be willing to help them get out of the responsibility of snow removal and maintaining those roads, that they would be more than eager to give me access to that property. I haven't just said a flat yes to that because I don't know what I'd be agreeing to. However, same thing with him. I'm sympathetic to the notion that I would want to pay snow removal on a bunch of roads that I don't benefit from either. So I understand the position that they're in.
Yes.
And then again, same thing with the nice folks that have the access up off of Vernal Pike. I just don't think that makes sense to do
I just
any
didn't
access.
understand why Cowden was talking about it. Now
Yeah.
I do. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Do you have further questions?
No.
Okay. And do you have any further? And Dee, do you have any further questions?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to discuss it. Thank
Okay.
you. And we'll have a motion and a vote.
Let's see if Dee wants to do anything. Dee?
No, I'm okay with this, actually. If you want me to make the motion, I will, since I can actually be heard now. Any other discussion? Okay, in regard to the matter of CDU-24-3, the Bozarth automatic repair conditional use, I would like to move that we accept the 15.6 acre parcel with, were there conditions added onto this, yes? No. Accept that as presented to us by staff for the conditional use.
I mean, I'm just going to go a little bit further here, if you don't mind. It's my understanding that the requests from the Parker Law Group are already conditions of the property, that a buffer exists and that efforts be made to preserve the tree canopy, and that Mr. Bozarth has himself proposed a subdivision of the smaller parcel from the larger parcel, and so that will take place and be met. And then also that the new CDO pretty much eliminates the need for further stipulation. And so the request put before us is just for the conditional use for automotive repair without further stipulation at this time. And I would like to just say how pleased I am with how well you worked with the staff, how open-minded and hearted, and yes, Mr. Lockman?
The only thing that concerns me is the 1.7. Can we say 1.7 more or less? So when they come up with the survey, we don't need to.
We can say 1.71 more or less, or 1.75 more?
So I think Dee made a motion to approve it with the 15.61
Yes,
acres.
she did, so
Yeah.
not the 1.7. Let's check with her. Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
Right.
And I would like to also just speak about one thing, I don't normally get on a soapbox, and this isn't really a soapbox, but I find it compelling that you're concerned about the efficient reuse of an existing property, and that you're concerned about the environment, and you are not wanting to disrupt things, and that, you're open about, the fact that 6 years from now might be a different story, and you've made an investment in this property, and, planning staff is here to help you along the ways whenever you need another change, and we are glad when you work with us to help achieve things in common. We're very happy about that. So I'm going to second, or you can second.
I will second it.
Okay.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve CDU-24-3. This is the Bozarth Automotive Repair Conditional Use to Chapter 813. This would apply to the entire parcel. A vote yes is a vote to approve. Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Pamela Davidson,
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes?
Motion is approved, 4-0.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight and for your patience, and Mr. Cooksey also for working, both of you working together. We really appreciate that for our overall community. Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to meet you. Okay, so we move on now to our last variance for the evening, and this is VAR-24-42A and B, and this pertains to a Starlight prohibited signs with a changeable copy sign variance to Chapter 807, and also a proposed variance for total sign allocation. And I believe this is at a property that is 7.14 plus or minus acres in Clear Creek Township, Section 8. It's 7640 South Old State Road 37. And Ms. Crecelius, if you would kindly review that with us, we'd be grateful.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so like you just stated, we are south on Old State Road 37 in Clear Creek Township, just to get you familiarized where we are located tonight. The property is currently zoned pre-existing business and is surrounded by suburban residential or agricultural, AGRR, my goodness, agricultural rural reserve, there we go. So pictometry of the site, this is the petitioner's site plan, but it's a great image. So as we can see, the site is an odd shape. You can see the screen and the rows of parking. On the right side by South Old State Road 37, they have a yellow circle where their existing sign is located. That's also the same location of their proposed sign. So before we jump into it, just to familiarize yourself, this is the existing sign that we are looking at on site. So the two variances, as we go a little bit more in depth, the first one, 42A, is from the prohibited signs changeable copy. So Chapter 807 for the sign structure ordinance states that all animated or changeable copy signs, including billboard signs, or signs which move by mechanical means or by the movement of air, are prohibited. So the existing sign is considered legal, pre-existing non-conforming. So it was there before the current zoning ordinance and standards. So under Chapter 803, it is allowed to be maintained and repaired. So that really big sign that exceeds what's permitted there, the type of sign that it's changeable copy, it can be maintained and repaired. So replacement or expansion of the structure, proposed replacement or proposed expansion, is then when the structure would have to meet compliance with the zoning ordinance. So they are requesting to replace the sign and to have a new changeable copy sign. So the property owner has stated that the existing sign is beyond repair. That's what they've stated, and they need to install a new sign. They are requesting a new changeable copy area. The next variance from the sign ordinance is 42B. This is from total sign allocation. So 807 states, it gives us how to measure how much sign in square feet each site is allocated. So we use the amount of linear feet along road frontage, and we have some built-in safety nets if you have a small site. So the petition site has 56 linear feet of road frontage along South Old State Road 37. So according to 807-7E3, no premises within business or industrial zones may be restricted to less than 75 square feet or, yada yada, no more than 600 square feet. So we have some limits there. So they would be restricted to 75 square feet to replace the sign. Right, their pre-existing non-conforming status goes away when they need to replace it. So they would have to comply with having a total of 75 square feet. They're requesting a total of 96 square feet of signage. So 75 is allowed, so there's a difference of 21 square feet extra that they're requesting. The current legal pre-existing non-conforming sign is massive. It's 250 approximately square feet, so really large. The petitioner's letter, they did state the representative of the petitioner is Seth and Jay with Everywhere Signs located in Bloomington. So they are saying that, they've been asked to remake the sign. They state that they have submitted all details have been submitted. They have submitted a sign application. They state that due to the historic nature and need for changeable copy for a drive-in, we are requesting a variance for the 96 square feet and the changeable marquee cabinet. So I would like to remind the board that, we are, when we consider any kind of sign permit or sign variance from those standards, we are not able to evaluate content, and so in this scenario, as we look at this is the proposed sign on screen, we should be evaluating the size of the sign structure and then also the size or the fact that part of the sign structure is changeable copy and is prohibited. So just another reminder of the existing sign on site. And I've got a few photos to flip through and then a little bit of history. So with the submission of the variance application, senior planner and also the staff member for the Historic Preservation Board, Drew Myers, he was like, hey, wait a minute. This site does have historic features. So this site is located within the Indiana Shard database, which was a county survey, a statewide survey of historic structures. So this site is listed as, it's rated as outstanding, and it does list a few structures including the sign, the projection booth, the ticket booth, and a few other things for its mid-century details. Using this as an opportunity, Drew Myers did reach out to the petitioner's representative and the property owner. They did, they kind of went over the possible options, talking about a possible historic preservation overlay. They did speak about this at the last Historic Preservation Board. Mr. Myers did kind of lay out some options. I'm going to put them on your screen. You really don't need to read this because at this point, the property owner and Mr. Myers have worked together, and they still think, although the historic preservation overlay might be an option for them, and they are going to continue maybe working or discussing it, at this point, they do not foresee the ability to keep the sign, and they're continuing on with their request for these 2 sign variances for a new sign in that location. So we did receive a response. They go over a little bit that that the sign is beyond salvageable, and they kind of go over their reasons that they still want to pursue these 2 variances. So we're keeping that on track with them. So staff is recommending for VAR 24, 42A, changeable copy, and 42B, total sign allocation. Staff is recommending denial for both. And the recommended motion reasoning is that the existing sign structure could be maintained or repaired without any variances, and that alternatively, a proposed new sign structure could be redesigned to meet both of the requirements under Chapter 807.
Okay. Do members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions? And I also saw that Mr. Myers is available for questions if anyone has questions.
I missed this. What is the age of this sign? Do we know how many years old it is? Because we just heard you say the sign could be repaired, but the owner says it's beyond repair. So I'm confused at how those factual discrepancies could be. And if it's very old, it's out in the weather all the time. It has no protection, no canopy, no nothing, so it's taken a beating over the year, and there's no doubt about it. Plus, I'm sure people have thrown things at it, confident of that, no doubt. So, do we know from the...
He said it's 1955.
1955. Okay, that's 69 years old.
Yeah.
My word, my word. And the problem is the size of it, because they could be grandfathered with the 75 feet, but the fact that they want to make it 96 feet and have the changeable content is where the problems arise. Is that kind of true? The size, and of course with a drive-in movie theater, you have to have changeable content. You have to.
No, they're
so you
not
wouldn't
permitted. In the county, they're not permitted.
But in a drive-in, they're changing the film title every. That's what we mean by changeable content. Is
yes.
The films.
Yes. So the 75 feet is not grandfathered because when they replace the sign, it's saying, boom, you got to comply.
I see.
So you'd have to have 75 feet or less. So they're requesting the 96 feet. And regarding the state of the sign, we really didn't have too much information to go on about the sign itself and what kind of state it was in. I learned a little bit about how signs can be repaired along the way from the meeting of the Historic Preservation Board and how you can replace elements to recreate the sign. This email Mr. Myers received on Monday, I saw it today, and they kind of go into a little bit more detail about years of neglect by previous owners. They talk about the poles rotting and the metal cabinet. So that could have informed the original staff recommendation. But ultimately, a new sign could be redesigned to meet those 2 standards. So under the standards of approval, I think we would still recommend denial.
So I believe Ms.
Could I say something?
Yes.
Yeah. thank you. Yeah, the sign that's there now, I think, is 256 feet. The one that they're proposing is 96, which is 1/3 the size of the other one. I think 20 feet, when you're talking a drive-in that has to show what they're showing outside, I'm a particular defender of drive-ins, I have to say, is not, yeah, that's why they're in front of us, because they need a variance. But I don't think it's that big of a push to cut it back by 2/3.
So just because we allow a size variance does not mean we have to allow the changeable copy. And by changeable copy, it means digital.
No. It
Yes.
just means stick the letters
No.
in by hand.
No.
Yes. Even the hand flipped signs lettering is changeable copy.
Yeah.
Yes. So the sign that they are proposing is not necessarily showing digital. It is a acrylic row where you swap out the letters one by one, and that is still a changeable copy sign.
So is there any differentiation in our rules about, I mean, back to Pamela's question, how do they change the movie title?
Changeable copy is not permitted. It's been pre-existing non-conforming for, I mean, the zoning ordinance came into play in 1997, so
But with a variance, they could have that.
they could.
With a variance, they could.
But could it be limited so that it not be electronic?
So that is I was just checking the definitions. Changeable sign is different than animated sign. So an animated sign is one that changes more than 8 times per day. They're not asking for an animated sign, they're asking for a changeable copy.
I see.
Technically, I guess they could still have a digital sign, but it wouldn't be able to change more than 8 times per day before they
see.
need a new variance.
I see. Well, do you have a question? Yes, Mr. Loftman?
Yeah, I'm back to 807-7 general sign regulations.
Yes?
Well, I want to, it's a staff question, so staff.
But could you put the microphone? Yeah. Yeah.
The one of the first slides you put up had the 75-foot. One of the first slides you put up talked about the 75, had that 807-7, I think. Okay.
So 75 feet allowed, 96 feet requested.
Okay, I'm just having trouble with textual exegesis, okay? No premise with any business may be restricted to less than 75 feet, nor more than 600. To me, that's saying you can't say that they can only they can't have more than 75 feet. They can have 75. No premise within a business may be restricted to less than 75 feet. It doesn't say that's the maximum. It says that's the minimum.
So when I evaluate a zone, a property for a sign, one of the ways that we do it, there's 2 routes. It's square footage of building along a road frontage or the total length of the road, of the property along the road frontage. Most of the time, it's the property boundary along the road frontage that is the best scenario for the property owner, gives them the most square footage. So when I do that calculation, if you have 200 feet of property boundary that's along a public road, you could have 200 feet. If you have 1,000 feet, we're going to limit you to 600 in this same standard. So since they only have 56 feet, just like a flagpole entrance on the road, we wouldn't say, well, you can only have 56 feet. This provision says we won't let you have less than 75. So if you only had a 10-foot entrance, you're at least going to get 75 feet. But if you've got 1,000 square feet, we're going to limit you to 600.
So not added in this slide, but just for further clarification, what Ann's saying is coming from a section right above this in the ordinance, which says, total sign area permitted for any business or industrial legal lot of record shall be, and then it goes on to say, 1 square foot of sign for each 1 linear foot of property fronting a publicly maintained right-of-way.
That's what I was
This is a
missing.
flag lot, and so they have very little frontage, and so that's where the minimum 75 square feet, they technically calculate less than 75 square feet, and so they get the minimum.
Now I see.
Okay. Okay, are there other questions for staff? I think we can hear from the petitioner, if the petitioner is here, and then I'd like also during some period to hear from Mr. Myers, since he's put some historic preservation work into this. So if you don't mind, we could hear from the petitioner or the petitioner's representative, and you'll have 15 minutes. If you could please raise your hand to be recognized. Do you see the person?
I see Dave has their hand raised, and then I also see Jay Graff as a possible petitioner as well. But
Okay.
Dave has their hand raised first.
Okay, so Dave, if you would kindly unmute yourself and at the appropriate time, raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And Mr. Dave, what is your last name?
Burnworth, B-U-R-N-W-O-R-T-H.
Okay, Mr. Burnworth, are you representing the petitioner here, or are you
No.
the petitioner?
No, I'm not the petitioner. I just live down in this area.
Okay, well, we're going to hear from the petitioner first, and I believe
Okay.
that there's another person who had his or her hand raised. If you could elevate that person.
Jay, if you can unmute your audio on your side, you should be able to speak.
Jay, if you would kindly raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I don't see their hand raised, so they may either be having technical difficulties or they may not wish to speak.
He's got video on and he is trying to unmute.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Mr. Jay, what is your last name?
Graff, G-R-A-F.
And would you kindly raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And Mr. Graff, are you the petitioner or the petitioner's representative?
Representative.
Okay, so just tell us what's going on and everything, what you need and why you want it, and what
You
we
bet.
can do.
Okay, so I'm with Everywhere Signs. We've been reached out by Mr. William Langham to redo the Starlight Driving sign. Upon inspection of the sign, it is very old and very bad shape. It is rotted, it's rusted, the plastic is brittle. Even if we were to try to re-update the sign, the corrugated plastic that's used on the back of it, it's no longer available. So updating something like that would actually be quite difficult to do. So we're here today mainly because of the changeable copy on the sign. Again, as it was discussed before, it would just be, just done by hand, letter by letter, changeable copy, no LED signage. Everywhere Signs is, we've been in Bloomington since LED signs were allowed, and we know they're kind of frowned upon. They're also really expensive, and it would be, in our opinion, very tacky and not uphold to the historical aesthetics, I guess, of the existing Starlight sign. So our main reason here today is for the changeable copy, because of course the drive-in theater needs to show what it's playing. So, and it can't do that effectively without some form of changeable copy. So the second part was the size. And we make a lot of signs at Everywhere Signs, and we do our very best to stay within city and county standards. This particular one, though, we feel like we can maybe get you guys to work with us on this. One of the big reasons is it's drive-ins, there's only about 330 something left in the entire country. 20 of those are in kind of the southern Indiana, Indianapolis area. We have about five or six close to home or so. If you, well, first off, drive-in history, it's very American. It's very American culture. It's also one of those things that really encompasses a family-friendly establishment as well. Of course, the historical aspect, all that. I would recommend, I don't have any sizes in front of me right now, but if you were to look at a handful of drive-in theaters around us, like Cinema 67 and that's north of Spencer, the Skyline Drive-In Theater in Shelbyville, the Tibbs Drive-In in Indianapolis, Moonlight Drive-In in Terre Haute, and the Holiday Drive-In in Rockport, Indiana. You will see that these are all larger than life signs, grandiose, very big. Probably the smallest one is the Centerbrook one in Martinsville. And we feel that just because the existing sign has been around for so long and it's so huge that if we did go down to the 75 square feet, it would be significantly smaller and the community would know this. There has also been a lot of excitement in the community too. William Langham, the owner of the Starlight, he's wanting to actually try to sell the old sign to help offset the cost of the new sign. And he posted on Facebook, and within 24 hours, they had over 300 likes and people talking about what can we do with this sign. So, so there's, a lot of historical, like I said, family friendly, just a lot of things that make it very unique. And compared to, like a Dave and Buster's coming in and saying, hey, we want more signage. Okay, whatever. But the drive-in though, as it was, if I could talk correctly, as it was mentioned, the current sign is about 247 square feet. And again, we want to be respectful of the county, stay close to the 75, but we feel that scaling the logo and still trying to preserve some of that sense of grandiose, that's why we are pitching the larger 14-foot by 4-foot cabinet, again, just to kind of keep up with the grandiose of the drive-in. And that's why we're here today. Thank you.
Mr. Graff, thank you very much. We appreciate your presentation, and we also appreciate you as a business owner in our county and our community. Thank you. And what I'm going to do now is recognize Mr. Drew Myers and then Mr. Burnworth and any other community members who might want to speak in favor or against the variance you request. And then if there's anyone speaking against it, we'll give you another chance to speak for 5 minutes.
Sounds great.
Okay, so Mr. Myers, if you would be so kind as to unmute yourself and just give us a little bit of your perspective from the historical preservation good work you do for our county.
Sure. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay,
and
great.
Would you kindly raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Mr. Myers.
So yes, when this came to my attention, I recognized it as one of the properties in the county that's listed as outstanding in the SHARD database. So I brought that attention to Ann as well as the Historic Preservation Board at their last meeting, which was just a few weeks ago. The board was very interested in finding out that the Starlight Drive-In had resources that qualified as a outstanding category. The SHARD database ranks properties in the county from outstanding to contributing as well, and also notable. So being outstanding, there's only a handful of those, maybe a dozen or so in the county, maybe more closer to 24 actually. And those structures range from, train trestles to residences to old commercial lots like this. And in my conversations with Mr. Langman, he was very interested, as Ann's presentation and the staff packet show, was very interested in the Historic Preservation Board and the Historic Preservation Overlay. However, it seems, given that the current condition of the sign is what it is, and based on the the funding that the drive-in has, doing some sort of replica work or engaging in the HP overlay this early in the process might be too cumbersome with finances. There are a number of signs that the Historic Preservation Board of Review gave me examples of that are in the county that did receive some replica work or restoration. The Von Lee sign on Kirkwood, for example, that is a complete replica. None of that is the original sign, but it was created to mirror the original. The Indiana Theater sign on Kirkwood as well, that is a restoration. So some of its components are original, but it is my understanding that a lot of it is actually new. So those are just two prominent signs in the county that are examples of some historic restoration or replica work. So there were a lot of options that were laid out in front of Mr. Langman that I was able to communicate to him with help from the Historic Preservation Board. And those ranged from doing some sort of restoration or replica work on the sign, removing the sign but placing it elsewhere on the property so that it could maintain some of its natural, some of its historic character and add to that outstanding quality, even in its current status. And then other options included, full-on replica work or simply just removing it and hoping that there's still enough historic resources on the site to still pursue the HP overlay possibly in the future. I did reach out to the Historic Preservation Board after Mr. Langman's response on Monday to see if they had any last-minute comments about possibly the removal of the sign, and then if the other structures on the property could still more or less keep the property in its status of outstanding. However, no one from the board was able to reach me in time. So it seems like Mr. Langman and the Historic Preservation Board are still very much interested in assisting one another to do something on the property. And it's just a matter of timing and finances right now for the sign itself. And I'll take any questions too.
Mr. Myers, is it a possibility that the Historic Preservation Board would help seek funding for the preservation and of the sign, or no?
I did ask in my email on Monday to the board if they were aware of any funding opportunities for historic signage. And I believe that I didn't receive a response on that question.
I see.
But I do believe that if there was any funding available, it would likely take quite some time, and it might also involve some grant writing in order to secure those funds. So it would most likely take quite a while to get there.
I see. Do members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions for Mr. Myers?
Not I.
Pamela? Ms. Owens?
No, I don't. I have a question, but I don't think it's one Drew can answer, so thank you.
Okay. Then I'm going to recognize Mr. David Burnworth. He's already sworn in, and he'll have 3 minutes to speak. If he could be unmuted.
Yes, I'm unmuted now.
Thank you. If you,
I live about 2 miles south of Starlight. Then live down, and that current sign, if you drive by it, you couldn't even tell the drive-in is open. I mean, it is so rusted and deteriorated, and I wouldn't have any problem at all with the new design at all. I understand the desire to stay within a historic designation, but seeing as how I think the drive-in has changed owners 2 or 3 times since we've lived here. And like I said, if you drive by it right now, you'd probably say it's another closed drive-in. So I would support the new sign in any way, shape, or form you can do it.
Mr. Burnworth, thank you for your testimony. And I'm going to ask if there are any other members of the public who would like to speak on this issue. Please raise your virtual hand to be recognized. Do you see anyone? I don't see Anyone? Myself, I can't really see. Okay. So I'm going to ask Mr. Graff a question, and you and Mr. Langman and Mr. Myers have all expressed interest and appreciation for the historic value of the sign. Now, would you be able and willing to work together so that somehow or another the current sign be either preserved on another portion of the property, or you could work together with the Historic Preservation Commission to come up with some satisfactory way to keep what is an outstanding historical element in our community? You know, it doesn't sound like the timing's going to work out for the desire of Mr. Langman to replace the sign. One option we would have would be to continue this this particular variance request to another hearing, because Mr. Myers and Ms. Crecelius put into the record that in September, the Historic Preservation Committee is going to be meeting and they have this as an agenda item. No? Okay, so no, it's just merely a request for a variance. And so, Mr. Graff, I wonder, of course it can't be binding on this proposal, but I presume you'd do everything you could to work with everyone to make sure we preserve what's precious, right?
Oh, absolutely, of course. That was one of the big things when when it got out on social media about the Starlight. Many people were saying, go put it by the concessions or put it somewhere on the property where we can still see it, because it's just a really cool retro huge sign. So yeah, we would. I mean, me personally too, I would love to see that thing stick around. The one thing with Mr. Langham is, new signs like what we're proposing, they're not exactly cheap. And he's trying to offset his cost of the new sign potentially with maybe selling the old sign. But he's also gotten back with me about the historical overlay. And while he doesn't think that it'll help us in the meantime, it's something that he's still interested in. But we do understand that one of the stipulations is he has to keep part of that old sign. So, but yeah, anything that we can do to help out with that and preserve that, we are all for.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Graff.
Sure thing.
This is difficult, so I wonder if there's further discussion among us.
Well,
yeah, I have something.
Yes, Ms. Owens.
Okay, thank you. It was stated, and I believe it, that in order to have the money to put in the new sign, you need to be able to sell the old one because it is cool and retro. And I love the Starlight as much as anything. And I'll miss that sign, I gotta tell you. But it's a small, tiny business that people are trying to run. They don't have big pockets. And they have to come up with some way to be able to fund their sign. They're trying to improve that business and that property. And I think that 21 square feet should not be a point of contention.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, great. And we tried very, very hard to stay true to the original design as well and not do something new and completely modern as well. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we can see that, and it's a possibility that somebody will buy the old sign and donate it back to the Starlight for use on the property or something like, we can hope for that kind of generosity, but it's not, of course, a guarantee. But we would.
It's a nice idea.
Yeah. So, Mr. Loftman, you had a question or a motion?
A statement and a motion.
Yes.
For 30 years, my wife and I were the owners of the Morgan House, which is a historic property at 10th and Walnut, and maintaining something like that is, and operating a business out of it is a challenge and a struggle, which we were glad to undertake. But I'm absolutely convinced that this sign is beyond repair. If you can't repair it, then the next best alternative is to come with something else, and to duplicate that sign would be terribly expensive, and This is a good plan, and I support it. Therefore, I move that we approve variance 2442A and variance 2442B, Starlight prohibited signs, changeable copy, and total sign allocation on the grounds that the property, there are great practical difficulties to working within trying to preserve that sign. The total square footage of signage is being greatly reduced, and this is a good solution to a good resolution of this problem. So I move we grant those.
I'm
I
gonna
second.
Yeah, Dee did. And I'm going to say I'm very glad that we've learned about changeable copy here tonight.
Yes, me
Because
too.
with a drive-in, you must have changeable copy.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the integrity of the new sign design to the original historic one, and I agree with Mr. Graff that grandiosity is a factor in the rationale for the approval. You know, for the kind of doing the best to maintain the historic quality of drive-in theaters in our state. So,
I believe it's been moved and
Yes.
seconded. I will call the roll. So this is for VAR-24-42A and VAR-24-42B. That is the prohibited sign changeable copy variance, as well as the total sign allocation variance to Chapter 807. So with the approval of this variance, you are granting them the ability to have 96 square feet of total sign allocation, and for that sign to also include changeable copy. A vote yes is a vote to approve both variances. Margaret Clemens?
yes?
Guy Loftman?
Yes.
Dee Owens?
Yes.
Pamela Davidson?
Yes.
Okay, the motion is approved 4-0.
Well,
Yay, Starlight Drive-In.
yes, let's go. We should
Let's
have
go.
an outing.
Let's go
Hey,
right now.
Thank you, everybody. This has been wonderful, and we're very, very excited to get started working on this thing.
Thank you so much. Maybe we should do a team building exercise at Starlight.
I think I'm in. I'm in.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you especially to staff. These presentations and your staff recommendations and your staff reports just keep getting better all the time. I just really appreciate them, and they're clear and they're easy to understand.
What I love is how complimentary so many of the individuals who appear before us are. That really is validation at the wazoo.
Yeah.
Well done. Thank you. We appreciate
Well
you.
done,
And I
yes.
will just report that, please review the CDO. I know we speak about it during the meeting. There will be changes. A lot of the variances that you see today may not be applicable under the CDO if passed as drafted, but there are other things that may come to you that you've never seen before. So please look through those standards.
Okay.
We appreciate your feedback and expertise as board members. We
Great,
appreciate
we're
you.
going to get that thing done. Thank you. Thank you.
Are we adjourned?
Yes, that's a motion. I
Is that a
second it.
motion? Okay.
Move
Yes.
to
There we
adjourn.
go.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.